All my life it seems like I've been surrounded by lilies. No, not the flowers. People. It works like this. So my grandparents on my father's side lived here at 113 Grange Road in South Yarra. Yep, I said South Yarra. They had lots of money. Did any of it come to me? Nope, but that's another story I'll tell you at some stage. Here, where I'm standing, if I faced this way and kicked a really good torpedo, it'd land in the Yarra River. That's how close we are to the river here. This is a very, very expensive place way back in the day, and it was pretty impressive inside. I can still remember that even though I was only about 4 or 5 years old. Now, my grandmother's name? Lillian, as you may well have guessed. And what do I remember of her? Well, there's only one thing I remember about her, and that is that she had a very stern face. In fact, I've only got one photo of her, and I think she's holding me about as far away as she possibly can. But her name was Lily. But my grandmother on my mother's side was completely different than my grandmother on my father's side. In fact, they had nothing in common whatsoever, except for the fact that they were both called Lily. And Lillian Walker lived in this house here in Balwyn in Wimmelley Road. And what I remember about her, my mother's mother, was that she was very, very kind. There was always food on the table when we came to visit her every Sunday. But what I really remember was the fact that when anybody was sick, she always wrote them a very long letter, a really meaningful letter. In fact, I've still got some of those letters at home that she wrote to my father when he was very, very sick. And then I started to grow up. I finished school, finished college, got my first job as a teacher. And then I started going out with Florina, and of course you visit all the family. So I went round to her house in Reservoir and I met the family. I met her mother, whose name was Dorothy, and her middle name, Lillian, Lily. And then I met her younger sister, whose name was Glenda.
Hi.
Her middle name, Lily, Lillian.
Don't forget me, that's my mum. She named me Lily too.
And a couple of months down the track, Florina thought it'd be really nice that I met her grandmother. So we came here to this house in Heidelberg and I met her grandmother, whose name was Lillian, Lily. They called her Mimi for short. And there's a few things I remember about her grandmother, but the thing that really sticks in my head is when Kobe was born, our precious little second daughter. And we took her around to introduce her and we said, "This is Kobe." And she said, "Oh, you think you could have come up with a better name than that?" She spoke pretty plainly and clearly to us, but we liked the name Kobe and we kept it. Florinda remembers going to this house as a kid and there was always a big bowl of lollies in the middle of the lounge room. And she would always say, "Please, Mimi, can I please have one of the lollies?" And the answer was always the same: "No, you can't." So many lilies, grandmothers, mother-in-laws, sister-in-laws. But to me, the most precious lily of all was one who I held for just a short time, but she didn't feel me. I spoke to her for a short time, but she didn't hear me. In fact, she never took a breath in this life, and that was my precious little Lily April Lewis, who was my granddaughter who died a couple of years ago.
She was to be pure and untouched by this world. She was to be a shining light. And her story of the faithfulness, kindness and goodness of God in the midst of absolute heartbreak will not be wasted.
That name Lily is always going to be precious to me. In the last couple of months, I got some new neighbours. This is Serena, and this is Kaiden, and this is Alex. Oh, and this is Lily.